On September 20th, 1969, Hanna-Barbera released one of Scooby-Doo's most well-known episodes with a very iconic and loved villain. This episode is the second aired and the third produced, and it's the third in our series where I look back at every episode of the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You? And today we have A Clue for Scooby Doo, which is the most confusing name of Where Are You? This title gives us nothing on the episode, and to this day we don't know why Hanna-Barbera did this. Just like the first episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? This episode has a different and unique title card, which is our last one, as we go back to the basic running with background title card for the future episodes. This episode is surprisingly a very iconic Scooby-Doo episode, as it was picked as one of the best for Scooby-Doo's Greatest Mysteries, a compilation of DVDs that were handpicked by the fans back in the early 2000s, which I made a whole deep dive on that you should definitely check out after this. So what makes our sea-going ghost diver so scary, as he's often compared to John Carpenter's The Thing? And I'm not talking about the movie The Thing, I'm talking about the poster for the 1982 horror film, which I guess kind of resembles him, but I don't really get that. With all that said, let's get into this spooky underwater adventure. Our episode begins with the Scooby Gang pulling up to Rocky Point Beach for a night swim, and before getting to the beach, Shaggy makes a quip about how his first toy was in fact a garbage disposal.
Can I help it if my first toy was a garbage disposal?
The gang set up and have a fun time while Scooby is out surfing when he picks up an unexpected ghost diver and swims to shore, abruptly stopping the beach bash, with Shaggy running into an umbrella and hiding, with the gang set to find out what that was. But the diver disappears into the sea.
There's something mighty spooky going on around here.
The next day at the malt shop, a somewhat common spot where Scooby and the gang learn about the mystery of the day. This time they learn about vanishing yachts in the marina, with a beach hermit named Ebenezer Shark blaming it on the ghost of Captain Cutler, which might have been what the gang saw last night. And with this newfound information, the gang are off to find out anything they can by talking with Ebenezer Shark. After arriving to his ship, Ebenezer tells them about the curse of Captain Cutler and how he died from a boat crash in the marina, with his wife bringing him back to life with her witchcraft. So the gang put the pieces together and figure out that Cutler is making the ships vanish to get his revenge. Scooby wanders off and falls into an open hole in the floor that leads to an empty diving suit that scares him, Shark suspiciously saying that it's his old diving suit. After that encounter, the gang split up to find out more information by talking to Widow Cutler up at the old lighthouse. In A Clue for Scooby Doo, it's clear that a lot more effort was put into the mystery element compared to the previous two episodes, with actual suspects who are memorably strange that really add and interact with the gang more than the previous episodes. When Shaggy, Velma, and Scooby take turns knocking, they enter the lighthouse meeting Widow Cutler, who practices witchcraft, which is strange by itself, but she also claims that she brought her husband back from the dead. Yeah, she's definitely a suspect, and she's super creepy, but still welcoming to the gang. After that spooky interaction, Shaggy sees glowing seaweed moving throughout the sand, with Velma getting the quote fat Scooby to go get it. After Scooby does it for a Scooby snack, he grabs the seaweed and Velma states Scooby found a clue. The next day, the gang meet up to go to the marina after a realization that the seaweed found can only come from the graveyard of ships, the same place where the yachts are vanishing. So the gang hop on a boat in their super iconic and sometimes reused scuba gear and go to the graveyard of ships. Scooby doesn't want to go into the water though, but after a little mishap, they all go in, deep under to the graveyard of ships to look for clues. While swimming underwater, the gang split up, with Velma, Daphne, and Fred finding a deep sea diver, who Velma, voiced by Daphne, mistakes the dead diver as Captain Cutler, as the real ghost locks him inside the ship in a very dark scene.
Could that be Captain Cutler?
It could be, but there's only one way to find out.
The door!
Shaggy and Scooby see the ghost running throughout the seafloor from his crime scene, and Scooby gets the smart idea to inflate himself so Shaggy can pop his suit to trip up the captain. But Scooby can't control himself and he bounces around into a ship, whereas our title states he finds a clue.
You found a clue?
A very important clue, so Shaggy and Scooby go free the gang, but the ghost comes back to chase after the boys, so Shaggy has to think fast. Maybe too fast though.
Fire! Like no fire.
After a little jump scare, the boys hide in plain sight and almost get away with it. And somehow they ram the door that the gang are in, and all of them head over to Scooby's clue.
You found a clue?
And this clue is glow-in-the-dark scuba tanks that look just like the ones on the Ghost. Speaking of which, the gang follow his tracks to a wall, but there's no entrance. But Shaggy finds one by sitting on a rock, which did look suspicious as the cave wall opens, and Shaggy is a genius. I guess that's why he turns into Fred. Man, the mistakes in this episode are iconic. The gang go into the cave and find a giant underground cavern with all the stolen yachts inside being repainted. So the gang know what Captain Cutler is doing and also that he's gonna be there soon. So they set a trap and the gang are set in their positions, and you guessed it, Shaggy messes it up. But somehow, some way, they capture the Ghost when Scooby rams a boat into him, capturing the captain. But surprisingly, it's not who they fought or anyone we actually saw in the episode, unless you were really looking. It's actually Captain Cutler. He never died. Him and Mrs. Cutler came up with everything to secretly steal the yachts from the marina and repaint and resell them to make a killing. And the gang read about it in the papers at the malt shop, and our episode ends with Scooby creating another mystery by drinking everyone's soda telepathically.
How did Scooby do that?
I guess that's another mystery.
And that's a Clue for Scooby Doo, and man, this one is a classic, and it seems more different than I remember. It's another solid episode of the series, and a key stage in the show's development. We can see the formula for Scooby Doo starting to become more concrete, with the villain of Captain Cutler being menacing for sure, but he's still far from the spookiest. He's just a glowing diving suit, a very basic design like the Black Knight Ghost. It's gonna be a few more episodes before the writers start getting bolder with the villains, though the episode makes up for its simplicity of its villain with a very spooky backdrops and aesthetics seaside locale. And personally for me, the most iconic aspect of the episode is that the gang actually go underwater to search for clues in a very unsafe environment, which shows how far the gang will go to solve a mystery. From the undersea chases to the mysterious characters, this one is great. Plus, when the gang go underwater, a cool thing that I noticed is that the animators went all out for the underwater effect, adding an actual water filter over the animation on top of the animated sea bubbles, which is very high quality for the 60s, but also the animation of this episode is much more sloppy with the characters, with multiple obvious animation mistakes and errors that of course we will see later in the series. But this one stands out a little more. But above all, this episode is very fun and different for being such an early Scooby-Doo episode. And with that said, I'll give it 4 Captain Cutlers out of 5. So what do you think of A Clue for Scooby-Doo? Have you watched it recently? If not, give it a watch and tell me what you think in the comments. What are some fun things you remember about this episode? Let me know. Consider subscribing to join this cartoon community, and next up in our series, we'll be looking back at a bearded man that likes to mine. Yep, that guy. And that's it for today's video. See ya.